Okay, here we go. Welcome to the Blade Dive, everybody. My name is Parker Bohan. I'll be your host, and I want to take another minute and say thank you to all the listeners out there. Everybody tuned in. The support has been incredible, and it's awesome to see, so thank you very much. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and follow us on social media at The Blade Dive on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Send in your questions. You can do that via the DM through any social media platform, or you can send us an email at thebladedive.com. Now, my guest today is Reuben Cameron. I've known Reuben for years, and it's always a treat to catch up with Reuben. He's an incredible human being, and I've shared some awesome experiences with him in the industry. Reuben has built parks all over the world in places like Norway, China, and North America, specifically in North America at June Mountain, California. He has also contributed to Home, and Home is Australia, at locations such as Perisher, Thredbo, and Falls Creek. Most recently, he was the park manager at Thredbo, and he has built and been a part of teams that have built events like Style Wars, the One Hit Wonder, and the Holy Bowly Down Under. We discuss misconceptions that other operators may have about operating snowcats in Australia at ski resorts, and how quickly they realize that the conditions are an animal and unpredictable. But on the flip side of that, how much of a learning experience for just growth in the skill set of the operator it can be if you do go to Australia and work there. Lots of laughs in this episode, so if you're at home, grab a drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine, you know what to do. Turn up the volume.
Just go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
Okay, here we go. Another day, another Blade Dive episode. And my guest today is somebody that I treasure and value the relationship and the experiences that I've had with him. He's had an impact on my life, my career, and a lot of stuff that I've done in the industry. He's from Australia and has basically transcended not only there but into other parts of the world to have an impact within the terrain park world. And it's Reuben Cameron. And I just want to say, Reuben, how are you, man? Welcome to the show.
Parker Bohan, I can't believe I'm sitting here with you. It's so cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man, always good to catch up with you. The virtual booth it's a little trippy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and in today's world with not only how messed up it is, but just with, I wish we could be face to face for sure. Circumstances preventing, I'll take this over not talking to you for sure.
Absolutely, dude. We'll be face to face again sometime soon. Don't stress.
Yes, I believe that as well. And I gotta ask, man, just being in Australia right now, are you surfing? And if you are you in Torquay? Is that right? You're in Torquay?
I'm in Torquay, yeah, southeastern Australia. It's middle of summer. It's been a little bit of an absent summer. But yeah, I've been surfing a bunch. The water's warm. I'm actually been surfing a board that I shaped myself with another cat operating buddy. Had a little spell in the quarantine in a New South Wales city called Newcastle where my buddy James lives, and we shaped a surfboard together, and that's the board I've been shredding for the last few weeks. It's a nice little touch on surfing is riding a board you've made yourself. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's something that I never really pursued or got into. And is that something that's near and dear to your heart, the surfing?
I used to surf a lot more than I have in the last few years. The last few years I haven't really had time. I haven't surfed much at all, but I've done a lot more snowboarding than I have surfing, and I'm from the south coast of Australia. That's, I guess, a little bit weird, but it just became one of those snow people, and once you start, it's a trap. You can't stop.
Yeah, and speaking of that and the trap and developing the passion for what is the snow industry, how did that, I get it. You live on the coast in Australia and the summers are beautiful there in Torquay. you're doing your thing. But what people need to know is there is some awesome shit that happens in Australia with the snow industry. And I want to know, like, maybe let's definitely start at the beginning, and if you could just paint us a picture of growing up as Reuben Cameron and getting into that snow world.
Yeah, I wasn't born where I live now. I was born up in the city of Brisbane, which is in Queensland. It's a lot hotter up there. Definitely no snow anywhere near there. Moved to Victoria with my family when I was like 7 or 8 or something. Just a typical kid, really, for the most part. Somewhat suburban lifestyle. Always into sports. Was never really an academic kid at all, which is why I became a snowcat operator and a carpenter, I guess. But uh,
Yeah, but neither of those can be discredited, dude. Like I was
no,
totally
no,
the non-academic student
no,
myself.
you
So
can't. It's but yeah, just a pretty stock standard little life, lots of sports, athletics, basketball, a little bit of baseball even. And then once I got to about, I was about early to mid teens, I was solely obsessed with BMX freestyle, and that just took over everything. And then,
I don't think I knew that. I pegged you as a skateboarder.
no,
So
I skate.
yeah, I always thought you were a
I did
skateboarder.
skateboard a tiny bit, but not enough to call myself a skateboarder. But the BMX freestyle was a solid obsession. Like Dennis McCoy and Dave Mirra are still, to this day, two of my biggest heroes ever, for sure. And I haven't ever lost that passion. I obviously significantly lost the skill because I just snow snow industry and snowboarding became such a focal point for me at the end of my teenage years that the BMX thing took a backseat, which everyone should obviously try and live their life with no regrets, but I definitely do regret walking away from that as heavily as I did. But
Wow,
yeah,
I did not. Yeah, I totally pegged you as a skateboarder. That was shit of me. But yeah, that's awesome. The fact that I was scared of the bike. I like that's so much respect for BMX riders.
yeah,
So much
so
respect.
it's loose. It's like every action sport these days. It is just way too out of control. But from there, I guess, yeah, became involved. First couple of trips to the snow. So from where I live to the snow was about a 5-hour drive, which is the resorts in northeastern Victoria, which is Mount Hotham and Falls Creek area. Did a couple little trips up there, um, and then pretty quickly got hooked. And then my brother just told me he was at college, and I called him one night and I was talking to him, and he said, "Oh, hey, I bought a snowboard today." And I just sort of said like, "Oh, like you bought your own snowboard?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah. Like I'm gonna get into it a bit more." And that was it. Away we went. I went on school camp trips, and then the obsession formed quickly, to say the least. Really, it was on straight away. Just obsession, buying snowboard movies and putting money aside to try and somehow get up to the snow, any way, shape, or form. And that was kind of late '90s when I was looking to wrap up high school, and just had this newfound love and obsession, and was absolutely bursting at the seams to just get my hands all over it.
Yeah, I think that's something I just feel like the barrier of entry is so damn high financially to enter the world of snow sports. And I mean, that's just my opinion, but what's cool is that there are organizations out there right now that are helping to make that easier. What was the snowboard shop that was around you guys? That was that like a constant staple?
Yeah, and then just buying snowboard movies, staying crazy motivated at something you didn't even have skills at. Like you've got all this passion and all this drive to be involved with something that you really are like the A team kook. You've got, no goddamn clue at all.
Dude, that's
But
so the truth. That's so the truth though, because it's like, okay, I got my gear, I got the snow, I've got 10 days under my belt. I'm the shit, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, for
I
sure.
got this. I don't need to learn how to do a kickflip. I don't need to learn how to do a bar spin while I'm in the air. I can just go down a hill and jump off
Go,
stuff.
yeah, just shred, man. Just shred
Send
it
it.
up.
Send
I
it.
think I even had yeah, I reckon I had like Quicksilver gear. I had like one of those like sock beanies, like one of those Joker sock beanies. It was like an ocean and earth beanie. It's just hilarious, dude. So hilarious. But
So
so
was it the how big was the reservoir tip on that one? Was that
it was a solid 18 incher, I reckon. Solid. I went snowboarding in Threadville a couple of years ago when I was still working there. In like an old kit, I had some old gear and I just threw it on for a laugh, and I was snowboarding along, and I rolled up to Ryan Teen. Ryan Teen was standing there and he looked at me. He's like, "Hey man, what's up? Nice to see it's 2005 again. Cool." I was like, "Oh, Vern, Teeny, you dick."
Oh man. That's great. No, that's so cool. That's awesome. So you were Hotham and Falls, is that right?
Yeah, so I guess if we fast forward just 2 years from '98, I did my first season. I finished high school in '99, and then first season at Mount Hotham, year 2000. That was my first official snow season, and just oh man, I literally, no word of a lie, I remember the first time I drove. We drove up there with all our gear and stuff ready to go, and meet the people we were working for, and all that, because the sunset was incredible, and we drove past a bunch of guys who had tripods and everything out, and they were shooting the sunset, and that sunset showed up as a spread in, it was like Powder Hound or Chill Factor or one of those Aussie magazines the next year, was like that sunset, and I was like, oh holy shit, they're the guys that we drove past that day, and that's the sunset. And that was the first time that we got to Mount Hotham. My brother and I and one of my best friends rolled up there to start work. Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, that was it, and that was the beginning of the road. That was the first of, I don't even know now. I think it was 24 or 23, 24, 25, something like that. Back to back seasons straight.
Wow.
It was a mission. It was a mission
Wow.
for sure.
But see,
But
I've never been to. I'll go ahead and throw this out there. Anybody that wants to say that the best sunrises and sunsets are anywhere else, I'm going to argue that Australia has the best sunrises and sunsets at a ski resort. Period. I will argue that until I am no
yeah,
longer
pretty
on this
yeah,
earth.
yeah,
Straight up.
yeah. They're
Um,
spectacular. Definitely spectacular.
It's just, yeah, they are gorgeous. So that's really cool that you had a moment happening for yourself, and then kind of the power of the universe happening right there in front of you too, with the creation of some art going on, and then you seeing it as a spread of a magazine and going, "Whoa, like something's happening here. This is rad."
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I literally do remember that. It's really cool.
What did you do? So, what was your first? Fast forward a little bit. What was your favorite? What was your first gig at Hotham?
First gig, classic lifty, dude. Got a job
Sick.
as a lift operator, and was just absolutely itching. And it was
So,
a it was a ginormous season. It was like the biggest
was it?
season in, yeah. Everyone still talks about the year 2000. It was a massive season. Just yeah, 18 years old, fresh out of school. Yeah, I must have looked like I was 12 or something. I don't know, but yeah, partying and doing the thing, and just snowboarding. Just, I remember thinking that year I wanted to stop snowing so that I can hit some jumps and learn some tricks. It was snowing that much, and it was amazing, and that set the tone. Which, as anybody that's done winters in Australia can realize how gnarly the conditions can get. That set this tone of like, well, this is what it's like. It snows this much, And then it went from one of the best seasons in years and years to literally the next year, one of the worst. And that was eye-opening for sure. It's not until you really do, you know, a bunch of seasons that you actually get perspective on what is a good season. Like that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into that, but I also want to know too, like, what kind of lift operator were you? Were you like bumping the chair and then itching to have the lunch break or the ride break, or were you totally dedicated to providing the best service possible to the guest?
Well, yeah, it's not the latter, that's for sure. But yeah, it's structured a little bit differently in Australia. You don't really get the whole ride break thing. It's kind of like you're on for the day. You either get a half day or you're on a full day, and then you get 2 days off. So you get like 2 or 3 half days and 2 days off. But you've got full days where you just go to work. You're up at 6 in the morning, you go to work, and you finish at 5. So it's different to, let's say, a setup in the States where you actually do get a ride break for the day and all that sort of thing. So I think you do a lot. As a lifty in Australia, you don't actually do much snowboarding. It's a bit of a rip-off as far as time on snow on your equipment goes. It's a bit of a rip-off for sure. And it's like an hour and a half or an hour and 40-minute drive from Mount Hotham to Falls Creek. And it's a really windy road.
That's pretty close. That's close.
It's not that bad.
Like, that's not
but
that
it's
far
a painful drive. It's a shitty drive down Mount Hotham. Then you drive over the pass to Mount Beauty, and then you drive up Falls Creek again. It's like there's a helicopter link that you can take, but it was like $100 a pop. But it was just like, I don't care, like flying over on the helicopter right in the park there. So then Falls Creek became...
Okay, hold on. Wait. Let's unpack that for a second. There's a helicopter link that you can take from somewhere in Hotham to Falls Creek. What?
No. The top of Mount Hotham, like in the middle of the ski slopes.
Oh my!
There's a helipad.
Oh my! So it's like I'm gonna go snowboard today. I take the helicopter.
There's a helipad on the cat shed at Mount Hotham, and you lift off.
That is so awesome.
You lift off the cat shed, and it's only like, I don't even know. It's like a 6-minute flight. It's real quick. It's right there, but to drive it, it's terrible. But then, so you boost over there and you get a 4-hour window. So you get off the chopper. You've got about realistically 3 hours and 15 or 3.5 hours to snowboard at the other resort, and then you fly back. And it's a spectacular flight, obviously, in the Alps in winter.
So you were totally dedicated at that point in time to providing services that were spectacular to the guest, irrespective of whether you were going to ride or not.
Oh, absolutely.
They had you booked for the day.
Yeah, let's run that for sure.
I think your point, though, is so spot on, because to put it into perspective, you've got one season could be prolific. It could be every idea, every visualized concept you've got as a rider, the terrain you want to ride or the park you want to go shred, can happen with the amount of snow that falls, because there's just so much of it. But then the very next season, that same resort may be like, yeah, no, we're not even going to open this year because we don't have any.
Yeah, or the day-to-day offerings are completely scaled back, and you don't understand why. And as I said, it just takes that few seasons to really understand what's going on around you. And then when you think about that, when you become educated a little bit, you sort of think to yourself like, oh yeah, it's so obvious. Like you can't do shit with no snow. So why would I have been whinging, or why do people whinge when they come up here and there's obviously no snow? Because when in Australia, as you know, buddy, as well as me, when there's no snow, there is no goddamn snow, but there's still, you're running snowcats over it, and there's however many thousand people skiing every day, and it can get to a point where it looks quite disastrous. I think your first winter would have been 2010, which was a horrible start, and then a gigantic August. So June and July had no snow at all, and then we got like over 2 meters of snow, so 10 feet of snow in August. And then we got 100 mil, so we got 4 inches of rain, like at the start of September. So it was no snow in June, July, massive amounts of snow in August, washed away in September. and you feel completely ripped off. I reckon that was your first season. I think I've got that pretty well pegged.
You know, the best memory that I have from that season, because you do have it pegged, is Jean Seb, and I love him to death. Really want to get him on the really want to get that dude on the show. Sean Seb, if you're listening right now, come and hang out on the Blade Dive. We got to talk, dude. That guy is an amazing winch operator, first of all. Second of all, it was pissing rain. We're talking like pissing rain. Here I am coming from bubble of June Mountain going, da da da. Oh, yeah, it's gonna be good.
Oh,
and I'm gearing up, you know, I've got my raincoat, I've got the uniform they give us, which is, I'm stoked they gave us a uniform, and I've got that on, and I'm going out there and checking my cat, and none of the other operators are out there, and I'm checking the machine, and you know, I fire it up, and I go back in the shop, and all three of the other operators are just sitting down at the table, and they're eating cheese and crackers and drinking wine. And Jean looks over at me, he goes, Parker, come and eat no snowcat. And I was just like, wait, what? What are you talking about? We got to go out and groom. He's like, nope, we're not going out there. Nope. Sorry.
We not go out there tonight. Is no too bad. No,
that is it.
No grooming tonight.
That is it. 100%. No, 100%. And what was cool was that he understood, because I didn't have the experience at that time to understand why, but he did. And the rest of the other operators did as well. They had the understanding that if we go out there right now, we're going to make things worse, more so than help it.
Dude, I had this session. I vividly remember there was like 5 or 6 nights at Falls Creek one year where I didn't groom the parks. It got to nearly a week, and I was as cool as a cucumber. I didn't care because I knew that if I took a snowcat in there, it is going to be a disaster. So I just let her ride, baby, until it freezes up again.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I mean that's such a massive learning experience, knowing what to do with the machine, what not to do with the machine around different weather scenarios. And sometimes you really have to ask questions in order to get that information. Proper training is so important. Sometimes it's not there, which is horrible to say, but it's just not. And you've got to really reach out and ask questions to help your skill set. And that's in any aspect of life. I get that. But within this industry and on this platform, I think what we're trying to do is encourage the fact that we would want listeners to send in questions to better their experience, either behind the sticks or if they're a non-operator, hopefully gain some knowledge to get motivated to become one. So knowledge is power, and I think being inclusive and sharing that knowledge is so important for the future of the snow industry. And I actually have a question from a listener whose name is David Steele. He's a non-operator, and he wants to know what's a push road. So thank you, David, for sending in your question. And I think Reuben Cameron knows what a push road is, and he can get that answered for you right now.
David, what's up? How are you? Cool question. Basically, just a push road is a means of moving your snow from one point to another. Really, when you have to transport snow, you just build a fat area that's generally a cat wide, and you start kind of funneling everything into that one cat wide zone, and then you move it across to where you need to in a one cat wide fashion. And then you create, by doing that, you create big berms on the sides, sort of thing. You want to maintain those that, you know, just around wing height or a little bit over, so you carry a lot of snow with you without it spilling out. But essentially, you're also on a fatter part of the snow base, so you're not anywhere near the ground, so you don't contaminate your snow with any dirt or anything like that. Pretty much, it's like it happens kind of naturally as you're just figuring out in your early stage or whatever of running a cat and moving snow. It's kind of happens naturally as a way that makes sense that you would do this. So I like to think that common sense prevails with that one kind of thing, and as you're running the machine, it happens by itself, and then you learn that that's what it is and that's how you do it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like the great point with the berms on either side, like effectively you're moving material from point A to B, but you're also doing it in a controlled fashion. It's not like your material is going everywhere. When you've got your blade down and you're shoving snow, um, it may be spilling out the side initially, depending on how tall the blade stack of snow is. But as you, like what Reuben's talking about, as you go lower into the material, not anywhere near the ground, hopefully, but in the thicker part of the run or location that you're dozing, you develop these berms. And so you end up with way more snow moving forward downhill. And maybe in a controlled fashion so that you can move material, and it's kind of a monotonous process, right? It's
Oh my
time
God.
consuming, and like hence the reason why it's the push road question of the day. It's a bit of a think tank. You're kind of going, what song can I listen to next? What's for dinner? Did I lock my car? I mean, there's just so many things that are running through your
You
mind.
get really you get amazing at driving your car by using your mirrors when you run a snowcat a lot in push roads and just live on your mirrors.
That's a
Half pipe walls are the worst, especially if the snow's coming from a ways away. But yeah, it's a long monotonous process. You can get trapped in that fishbowl on a push road for sure.
or learn how to push snow and make or create rookie rollers or whoops or whatever you
Yeah, yeah.
blade dives. It's also like a pretty good training piece too. If you've got a lot of snow and a fat area on the run, and
Oh, it's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing for sure. It's good fun. It's good fun if you're in the mood to get angry and push some snow. It's an amazing exercise.
yeah, I thought it was a great question, and David reached out and hit us with that one, and I was kind of like, you know what? I think we got to cover that one. That one's pretty quintessential, given that it's got to have some background meaning and applies to the push road question of the day. Let's define that for everybody. So, yeah, man, I thought you'd be the perfect person to tackle that. Thanks for tackling that question. Thanks, David, for asking it too. But just to jump back to the career real quick, so you're doing the lift op thing, and trying to get the most out of it that you can, and you've got an awesome season that you started there. But I want to know too, how fast did you transition into the terrain park or the alpine world? And was there an equipment background there to begin with if you just jumped in the machine?
No specific equipment running at all for me as a young guy. I transitioned into the park at Falls Creek. Lo and behold, 2003, they got a couple of characters from Mammoth Mountain by the name of Mike Ershner and Jeremy Cooper,
No shit.
and Falls
Wow.
Creek just went boom, and everybody was like, boom, eyes on Falls Creek. Holy shit, what are they doing? And that sort of thing. And then I ended up swindling a job on the park crew for Falls Creek in 2004. It was my first season as a day crew boy. So
Wow.
it was which was amazing. I remember getting that job, and I was so pumped. I was so pumped because I knew what they had going on, and it was only going to get bigger and better. I kind of feel like I got in just halfway between the ground floor and the first floor. Like I just snuck into a moving elevator somehow, and
You were one of those guys back in the day going, wow. I don't even I'm so happy right now, so filled with stoke and emotion that I'm just over the moon happy. Like
dude,
happy.
yeah,
Genuine just peace and
yeah,
tranquility almost. Yeah, you that was very eloquently put. I've never heard anybody describe it like that. That was cool.
yeah, and that's like you said. I was just right there, and I was in it, and I was living it, and I just could not have been any more pumped. So I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm gonna hang on and enjoy the ride and see where I go. And
What was kind of the turning point? Was it just that, hey, I'm tired of the rake, I want to get into the machine? Or was somebody looking at you going, I think that guy maybe deserves a shot. Like, how did you get into the snowcat? How did that happen? I think that's a big component of what I don't even know this story. Like, how did that go down?
yeah, well, I hadn't had enough of the rake. I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed how physical it was, and it was daytime work. But a gentleman that you and I both know quite well by the name of Sam Poffley had in fact come over to build the parks at Falls Creek as a replacement for Jeremy and Mike, because they'd done a few seasons, and in 2005 Sam Poffley came over as a young and very up and coming park builder, and he and I hit it off so quick. It was like we were overnight best buddies. I'll never forget that, and he still is a very good friend that I was actually exchanging messages with just the other day.
Nice.
And he got in my ear. Sam got in my ear halfway through the season. He was like, "Dude, you gotta come do what I'm doing. You gotta get in the machine and start doing this." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I kind of enjoy the gig the way it is, And he's like, "Yeah, but think long term. Like if this industry is something you want to be involved with, like a day crew job's fun and all that, but as far as challenging yourself and taking on some responsibility, you gotta do this, and like this place is gonna need someone in a couple of years when I've had enough." And that was kind of it. So Sam Poffley was the kind of ignited the fire, and then I took it to the slope maintenance manager at the time, who was by the name of Jeff Sorensen. Jeff was one of those long-time guys that had been at Falls Creek forever, and I sort of got in Jeff's ear and I said, "Well, what do you think about this?" Oh, and he's like, "Well, what do you mean? What do I think about this?" And I said, "Well, I want to do this. I'm kind of this nervous guy talking to this pretty hard man, and I'm like, well, I want to do this, And he was like, "Well, if you want to do it, you'll show me that you want to do it. So don't talk about it. Just show me." So then I just started doing ride-alongs in my own time, like a lot. I was, each day after work, I would just go and sit. Most of the time with Sam. Sam was there, but then sometimes with some of the other guys, some of the trail operators and stuff like that, because obviously at this point in time, I know nothing. And yeah, away I went. So I sort of did that a lot, and then Jeff got to the point where he was like, "Okay, cool. You sort of showing me that you want to do this. So do you want a snowcat tonight? You want to take a snowcat?" And I was just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this guy's gonna give me my own. This guy's gonna give he's gonna give me a snowcat to go driving around this hill by myself, and I was like, and Sam sort of looked at me and laughed, and he was like, "Yeah, we were actually building a new park at Falls Creek that hadn't been built before." And Sam was like, "Yeah, let's grab a snowcat each and come up and push some snow with me." And I was like, "Holy shit, man, this is real. This is happening." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah." I just sort of tried to keep my composure, and I was like, "Yep, fuck yeah, let's do it, And away we went. Sam and I went and started pushing snow together, and I remember watching him, and he's in like fifth gear, and I'm like stalling. I'm like stalling it at the traffic lights, like holy shit. But then I was just sort of go together. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and everyone knows that. So you might as well take the pressure off yourself. But it's one of those things where you automatically put pressure on yourself because you want to do well, and we're gonna get to that for sure. But yeah, I remember that first night that I was out there pushing snow, and it was amazing and it was cool, and that was when I was 100% sold. Like, yeah. It actually that experience made me really short-sighted because all I could think about was just the next shift, getting in a cat and trying to do something with it, and the next week trying to get 2 or 3 shifts or 4 shifts in a cat, and then the next month I was like, yeah, I would do a whole week in a snowcat. Like I didn't. Obviously, because I had no idea at that point anyway where it was going to go or whether or not it was going to be a long-term thing or anything. Like, it was so green, man. Like, straight just green leaf off a tree, no clue. But it was amazing, and I've never forgotten that, and I never will forget that. So Sam's influence getting in my ear of this is what you should do, and then Jeff being cool enough to let me do it. And then I came back the next year as a full-time snowcat operator because I then did the season at Vale, which was 05, 06, 07. And
So you actually did you do so you did a season at Vale before you did a season at
I
Fall?
did a season as a trail groomer, a fleet groomer in the pack at Vale.
Dude, I'm gonna bring this up again. I'm gonna hit this hard because this is just a subject that keeps popping up in episodes of people who have had incredible careers in a snowcat, not starting off as a park operator. I just think I'm going to keep hitting the nail on the head here because I believe in that experience that when you have the opportunity to get in a machine, follow the crew around the fleet and learn the machine, learn to keep it flat, learn to figure out where the torque is and understand the machine. It's just amazing how many people started out that way or had a season or two there before they did park. I think that is just I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, I mean, as old school as it might sound, coming from me, because I'm an older guy, I'm 39 now, but I am a firm believer. There's no substitute for experience, but the only way you get good experience is from good foundation. So there is no way you can.
Damn, everybody write that quote down right there. Everybody get your pencil out. If you're listening right now, just go ahead and write that down. Yep, text it to yourself if you're using a phone.
You can't.
That was deep.
You can't become good at something unless you learn good habits in the beginning and have a solid foundation. That's all there is to it. And as much as people sort of think they don't need that, it's like, well, or there's guys out there that have gone on to be park operators without doing that, so that they just don't know what it's like to have done that. And I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it is 100% necessary to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the point. It's great if you started out without that, but if you did get that experience, don't be too ignorant there. Don't be self-righteous. It's still operating a machine, even if you do want to get to the park world. And the out.
It's pushing snow, making shapes. Like you get to do chairlift unloads and all that sort of thing. Grooming a chairlift unload is very similar to grooming a jump. Like, you know, it's all the same shit. It's all the same shit. There is no, like, park guys aren't better than fleet guys, anything like that. Like, it's the same job. It's just a different aspect of it, you know? It's like the same language, just two different dialects.
Dude, you're
how
throwing
it is.
out all
Like,
kinds of one-liners that I'm writing that one down too. I got my pen out. So okay, you did the season at Vale as a fleet groomer, and how was that?
And it was sick. It was really good fun. It was amazing. Cool experience. Really good season, which was a bonus too because I got to, like, it was a really good season. It started early and went the whole way to the end with no problems with snow or anything like that. So in hindsight, now that I think about that, that was great. There was no struggle with, because sometimes in a bad season, obviously they'll just send good operators to go and do stuff because, you know, like they want the resort to look as good as it can be. You can't risk pulling up dirt, anything like that. But it was a good enough season that the base was big enough that I got to go and do some little projects and stuff like that. So
That's so cool.
that was really cool. Good exposure to what it's like to have some responsibility and understand that you're the one that's, here's a little job list. You got to go do this, and you're going to get feedback about it tomorrow. So that kind of, there's also that, you know, like that whole responsibility thing. Because once you become a park guy and you're responsible for the parks, that's your thing, and you are gonna hear about the park shit every goddamn day, and from people that have no idea what it's like. So it was really good for me to get that experience of having job lists, responsibilities, and trying to execute them and do a good job, you know, and then come into the office the next day and be like, oh, did I go okay?
See, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
cool. And it's so that really makes your experience at Vail productive for your career, personally and professionally, because you've got somebody that's so they were literally, as you do, you get an assignment, here are your trails, and then you ask what's next, maybe if you complete that. But you were getting feedback on how that was going. They would come in the next day and say, all right, we noticed this, and this from the feedback of everybody that was maybe writing it. So that's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it sets you up for a mental state of that's part of your daily obligation is taking the feedback, interpreting what people are talking about, and then putting it on into your hands and through your hydraulics, you know. I
Yeah.
did get asked.
Do you feel like
I could snowboard at that point. I'd gotten pretty decent as a shredder at that point, and the park guys noticed that because I was always in the park, and I could definitely boost an air out of the pipe at that point too. And those guys put it to the grooming supervisors and said, "Oh, we wouldn't mind taking Reuben and seeing if he can do some park work." And the grooming supervisor at the time was the guy that hooked me up with the job because he was working at Falls Creek. So that was timing, and that was perfect for me as well. That all fell into place. Jimmy Lausberg hooked me up with the job, and Mike Bryson, the head park guy, went to Jimmy and said, you know, Reuben spends time in the park on his board and he's showing a bit of promise in a cat. Like, maybe we should get him in the park. And Jim just said, no fucking way. He's staying on the trails.
really?
Yeah, he's staying on the
Wow.
trails. And I was pissed. I found out about that and I was pissed straight up. But now I'm so goddamn thankful that he said no. Because
Wow. That dude, that's a story right there.
I would have gone into that park and I would have fucked a bunch of stuff up. You know, I would have been way out of my depth, and there's no point putting yourself in that situation. You're better off having patience and learning and doing a good job and understanding what it's like to have that patience and climb the ladder and earn your stripes. Earn your goddamn stripes. You know, you gotta. No one does that anymore, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But
well, I want to know if you had to take anybody kind of maybe under your wing or give them some guidance, put them in their place, or
oh man,
yeah, what did that look like? Were you standing back, kind of going, okay, we're gonna let this run its natural course. We're gonna let this individual be humbled. What happened there?
You, absolutely. Like, I do not mean any offense to anyone that's listening to this who happens to be from North America, because I'm sure that's the majority of the audience, but it's tough in Australia. And, you know, I know a lot of really good operators that have come down there and just been leveled, you know, just been straight up leveled. Like, they don't know if they're asked from their elbow, really, as far as like, wow, like this is another world. Like, so much moving of snow, farming of snow, minuscule little snowfalls that we actually have to do something with. Like, you get 3 inches of snow, 4 inches of snow, and you're expected to do something with that. You don't just drive it down and say, oh, we only got 3 inches, we can't really do shit with it. It's like, no, you got to get those ski runs open. And the park guys, you got to get some rails in the ground and somehow try and squeeze a little jump out of that. And you are like scratching around and you are left on snow that's barely even grouser deep that you have to groom out and get a product open, and it shuts people's mouths real quick. And that's early season too. So if you make a mess of it, you're going to get reamed. Like, people are going to look at you and be like, what were you thinking? It's early July. We've got to get through 3 more months. Look how brown you left that shit. So it's a challenge. It's, to say the least. And you see people that come in hot shit off the plane and they're like, yeah, I'll probably walk out of here and these guys will think I'm the shit. And a week later, they're like biting their lip when they show up to the workshop to get their snowcat. You know, they're like, fuck. So that hit really hard. But I knew that before I even had snowcat experience. You know, the conditions are so different and that sort of thing. It puts it in perspective a lot more. when you get in a snowcat. But and just the rain events and stuff like that, you've really got to play chess with what you're doing, and you get to the point where you know what you can and can't get away with. And like after, I've done 14 seasons in snowcats in Australia now, so I can, I like to think that and I've done that across 3 different resorts. So I like to think that I've got it pretty dialed with looking at the weather, knowing how much snow we've got, what we can and can't do, that sort of thing, making a decent call. But if you don't have that education, you can find yourself in a bad spot really quickly.
Was there ever anybody that
it's probably a fair... Sorry, man.
No, it's all good. I was just gonna say, was there ever anybody that came down there that had that take on it? Oh, I'm the shit, and I've got my shit figured out. I'm not gonna have an issue down here. I'm gonna be just fine. And they're not really showing up to improve themselves. They're showing up more to prove themselves. And they just quickly get put in their place. Or did you, like, going back to kind of maybe...
Oh, yeah, there's no bad blood or anything like that. It's almost a comedy act because you can count on it. You see this, meet somebody in the office for the first time, and then it becomes laughable now. I'm like, okay, cool, that guy's going to shut his mouth in about 6 hours. It's hilarious, and you just learn to let it go. You just say, oh yeah, here's another guy fresh off the plane, thinks he's killing it, and stop. He just fucking pulled up a whole bunch of dirt, hit a rock, pulled the wing off the blade, and now he's saying sorry to everyone, and he'll shut his mouth.
And it's so funny too, man. Like,
yeah,
it's almost like an initiation piece, or I don't really know how to describe it.
For sure. And it really quickly, people learn so quick, and then they're like, okay, this is no joke. I've got to take this seriously and just kind of chill and learn what goes on here. But in the first season, I just had the massive cushion of working with Sam. So that was an incredible learning experience, really. It was like that first season in the park, we built a 120-foot jump, in the middle of the park to be judged for a fucking snowboard comp, and it was out of this world, man. I'd never forget that. There's so many moments in my career along the way that I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. But this is definitely one of those majorly defining moments where I was like, holy shit, that was loose. Like, it was insane. We did 93 hours of work that week in a cat to try and get it all ready, and I was Sam's right-hand man, and he was leading the charge, and we built a 120-foot jump, and then watched Torsten Hogmo take everybody to town on it and go from amateur to pro that day in Australia, pretty much.
Wow. That would have been an experience, like seeing that firsthand go down. I mean, especially after building it. Yeah, that would have been nuts. Okay, so before we get too far along, I want to jump into the push road question of the day.
The push road question of the day.
The push road question of the day is something that comes to us from the listeners, which is awesome, and other operators and people who are just genuinely interested in equipment or the show. So it's been really cool to just see and read some of the questions that have come in so far. If you would like to send us a question, you can do that via direct message on social media, or you can send us an email to thebladedive.com. Today's question, though, Reubs, is from somebody you know, Peter Colombo. Mr. Peter Colombo, amazing dude. His question is, if you had to be stuck in a snowcat for an entire shift with only one CD to listen to, what would that CD be?
Ooh, it's funny that, let me start by saying massive shout out to Pete. Love that guy. It's been a while. Massive respect. And I think it's hilarious that he's asking what CD, because in my time, I used to take a CD book to work, loaded with about 100 CDs. I think that's back before iPods. I think I was in a snowcat before there was iPods. I don't know. something like that. But wow, because
Oh yeah, I definitely remember you leaving that book in the machine a couple nights, and I was stoked. I was like, hell yeah. Oh, totally. I was like, yeah, I got something to listen to. Reubs left his book of CDs.
You go through.
So,
It's crazy how you can go through so many emotions in a snowcat in 8 hours. So, damn, man, what sort of, I don't know. Let's look at it from the ultimate when you're just absolutely frothing and you're pushing snow and you're stacking snow and you're stacking a landing and you're like, fuck yeah, this is going to be the sickest landing ever. I used to do a lot of that to Green Day 21st Century Breakdown. Probably. I built a lot of jumps to 21st Century Breakdown, or definitely a Blink 182 album would have to be right there.
nice. Heck yeah. Well, so let's that's from the building perspective, right? You're pushing, you're stoked, let's flip it like you were saying, and let's just say you're either mowing the grass or you're organizing the rail yard, just something mellow. Maybe you're pushing out whales. What are you listening to? Some Mozart or something? I don't know, some classic piano.
I used to have this. I had a mix CD that I had downloaded of obviously snowboard tracks through snowboard movies, and that was always comforting. I think that was a pretty good one for sure. You know, songs off like movies back in the day, like Lame and After Lame, and all those real fun kind of poppy songs that those guys used. The robot food guys used to have in their soundtracks. I had a CD that highlighted robot food soundtracks, and that was always awesome. They're always like
That's
those.
sick.
Yeah, those
Video,
like
Video
happy
Killed the
go
Radio
lucky
Star.
kind of songs that you can picture yourself sending it in the backcountry with, and or you're like grooming a jump takeoff and you picture yourself being Dave Benedek doing some Cab 5 rewind or whatever, you know. That sort of thing.
Oh man, those are cool. I remember one time Poffley left some no FX in the machine one time. I was digging
Yeah,
that.
nice.
I thought that was quality. Like, yeah, got lucky. It's kind of like the draw card of what you can get from somebody if they do leave a CD in the machine. Yeah. And I think, man, Reubs, thanks so much for participating in the Push Road question of the day. And Peter Colombo, man, thanks for the question.
The Push Road question of the day.
I kind of want to get into, some people I feel like are hardwired. Some people I feel like are a little bit more moldable than others, and I think that's all about your open-mindedness and being able to kind of morph and change yourself and grow. Maybe grow is the right word. But you mentioned you kind of you butted heads with your mountain manager there at Falls, but it was for the right reasons. I mean, you were being taught something even though that you were kind of given some pushback, but you needed to see his point of view. Do you think that being approachable as a person, whether you're a manager or an operator, whoever you are, do you think that learning that tool of being approachable and approaching others the right way is something that you can learn? Or do you think that it's something that's kind of hardwired into somebody that you can't really reprogram that individual, unfortunately, and they're just kind of stuck in their ways?
No, I think you can learn it for sure, and you need to be exposed to people like that. And you need to understand why people respect other people like that, and why people want to be around them and want to work for them and want to listen to their opinion. Like you have to be the approachable guy, and you're not necessarily, some people are hardwired for sure. Some people are hardwired to not have the balls to stand up and say anything, or some people are hardwired to just be straight dicks who no one wants to listen to. But you need to be the chameleon. Those people don't go into those positions, and those people don't get good followings of people backing them and supporting their ideas and their motivations and that sort of thing. So I think it can be learned for sure. It takes a certain sort of person, really.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. This might be a toughie, but if you are able to kind of change your direction and be more approachable, does that mean that you have to have all the answers as a leader?
No, because no one has all the answers. And anybody that tells you that they do is full of shit.
Yeah, I just took notes right there.
Straight up. Like,
Yeah.
we're all human beings, right? Like, you can't possibly have all the answers because there's other people's opinions and other people's interpret different situations differently to you. So their answer is going to be different. So that's what makes the world go round, right? Like, everyone's interpretation is different. Everyone's opinion is different. It's gathering all the info together as a team and coming up with the best outcome with that information. And by being a good leader, you care about what other people think and you want to know what their opinion is because it's important to them. And so if they can be made to feel that you think they're important, then they get behind you and then you start to flourish as a team. And that's definitely skills that I didn't have back as a young CAT operator. As I was saying, I was short-sighted and all I thought about was getting good in a snowcat and building parks and building jumps. It wasn't really until I left Falls Creek and went to Threadbow that I actually really started to work on the management side of things and what it took to be the person that someone wants to work for and that the entire team has the respect for. Like that came later in my career for sure. I was way more raw at the start, just snowboard guy who wants to build jumps. That was kind of my early time.
Through comparisons. That's how I compartmentalize things, with analogies and comparisons. But with comparisons, those things are the biggest stealers of joy. And when you get caught up in going, well, this program has this many features, why can't we? And this program has this much acreage, and why can't we? Or this Alpine program has this wench cat, why can't we? And you start just bullet pointing everything like that instead of going, okay, I'm going to try to accurately present information to whoever it is that I'm around as a leader so that I can show up to improve myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You need to interpret all the information around you and sit and think, for sure. And perspective is you can't do at one resort what you can do at another because it's a different resort. It's same, pretty simple really. Like otherwise every ski resort would be the same, right? That's what makes the world go round. It's a little bit different.
Like making a decision that doesn't fit your application can fuck shit up really quickly, like so fast.
Absolutely. Know your place and your purpose and what it is you're trying to achieve and why. Don't just run out and, don't be some shitty car in a race trying to be a Ferrari because you'll get burned. Just know exactly what it is you're trying to do and why. And exactly, the scene did explode quickly and money was getting pumped into parks and stuff like that. And snowcats were being developed to specifically do park work and all that sort of thing. It was a heyday, really. It was a little kind of golden year of the snowcat. Like a bunch of people sort of talk about it, really. But yeah, there has to be a reason as to why it's being done.
Yep, being able to justify it and not just look at it from a anecdotal standpoint or in the aggregate or whatever, however you want to pitch it. But I was fortunate enough to be around people like yourself, people like Jeremy Cooper, people like Sam Poffley, people like Doug Mercer. Yeah, well, dude, like Ryan Farns, Joe Lauer, James Lauer, Tor. Oh my God, man! Like the list of names for that crew that year that were basically saying, "Look, don't do this. Do it this way, and you'll understand why later." But what was great about that was that information was shared. And at the time when the industry was exploding and there was money going everywhere and there were resorts investing in all kinds of different components to better their experience for the guests, the operators, like in my opinion, there were a lot of industry secrets that were just, as far as a building perspective is concerned, that were just kept kind of private. And I did not understand that for the life of me. It was like, Okay. Maybe I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. But that whole like not sharing information and stuff like that, I just don't even understand that. I can't even like get my head around that. Other than the fact that it's ego of wanting to be the guy that can do certain things, and you feel threatened by letting other people start to try and do them in case they start getting it right, and then you start to feel exempt or something. I don't know. I never understood that. I've never been the guy to not sit in a snowcat with someone if they ask me, or if they're like, "Oh, how would I go about doing this?" It's like, here, man. I'll give you 5 steps or 10 steps if you want. Like whatever, I'll break it down for you however much you want. Doesn't change the fact that that person still has to go and do it. Like being told how to do something doesn't give you the skill to do it. You still have to go and do it. So, and that brings me back to the experience quote. You know, it's like you can't do something really well your first time. Any cat operator that is going to sit there and tell you they've never built a shit jump or anything like that is totally full of shit. Like cat driving is so similar to snowboarding. It blows my mind. Like you are all into it. It's passion. You have to be committed. You have to be willing to send it sometimes, and you have to be willing to eat shit so that you can get up and try it again and nail it. And anyone that says they've nailed something, or never built a shit jump, never had a bad project come out, never built a bad terrain park, like, dude, fuck off. Don't tell me that, because I ain't listening at all. Like, yeah.
So you've done your time at Falls. You've spent time at Vale. You've got a lot of experience under your belt at that point in time. But there was definitely a period where you transitioned over to June Mountain and took advantage of that opportunity. Maybe, but I've also found it just, and this is just my opinion, but it's always been more difficult recently for folks from Australia to come over to the States and work than it has been for folks in the States to come over to Australia. I mean, we don't have to get into that, but the transition to June and how easy or difficult that was and how that happened. Maybe let us in on that story a little bit.
June happened basically through the general connection of Mike and Jeremy initially coming to Falls, which then turned into Sam coming to Falls, and Sam was working at June. As everybody knows, June Mountain's the little red-headed stepson of Mammoth. And so Jeremy running that program and Sam working there, and Sam and I working together in Australia. And Sam was confident enough in me that he was happy to get Jeremy to get me a visa in order to come over. That was in the heyday of the H2B visa that Australians were using in order to be employed in the States, which I actually got an incredible run with that. I did a couple of winters in Steamboat also, and Vale, and then a whole session at Mammoth, all on this H2B scheme. So I got really lucky with that, which was abolished after the GFC or GEC, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's what I think you're probably also getting at with the whole struggle to get people over there now, particularly nowadays. It's quite hard, but it was pretty easy back then. I didn't ever have any trouble with it, but that was all part of the golden era, I guess, really. But that's how June happened. I ended up at June Mountain through Sam Hopfley.
Very cool. And the special place that it was definitely given the opportunity to host, build, create some incredible events such as like women's super parks and grenade games and photo shoots for MacDog. There were all kinds of things that happened at that little mountain, man, and there you got to be a part of it. So if I would be stoked to hear any stories that you have on some of those special experiences. Unfortunately, I was able to share some of those with you, but just your takeaways and your stories.
Oh man, we were getting away with the coolest shit. Like we were getting away with murder in that place. It was insane. The public park was off its head. It was awesome at the time, and then the photo shoot season would kick in towards like mid late March. We would start penciling people in, and the phone would start ringing a lot, and yeah, we want to come do this, we want to come do this. Like there was definitely a couple of years there where we were, and we were building massive jumps and massive hips and cool features that no one had ever really seen before, and it was an amazing scene. And for such a tiny little backwater resort, it was amazing that we were doing it. And massive props from me personally goes to Eric Rosenwall and Joe Genovese for really sort of being the guys that I think, well, I mean, June always had snowboard history, but there was always a perfect pipe at June, and then Joe just started building Gunsmoke, and Andrew Erath was there for a bit, and I got lucky with my timing there for sure. Just unbelievable experience, good crew, and shitty machines, man. That was like,
Yeah, 100%. Let's get into that for a second. My favorite picture of you is with the Terrain Master, and you're doing the big old thumbs up, and you've got this massive jump behind you with this snowcat that looks like a toy.
oh yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
Terrain
baby.
Master, the BR275,
BR2,
BR2,
baby.
BR2, the
BR2.
green machine. I mean, that was the first machine I ever operated. I loved that machine. I love the fact that it was so simplistic, but it took so much to actually, take your hand off the control to put the Dumbo ears down. Dropping the tiller was definitely a process with a toggle, and adjusting all those things were definitely. Hey, but I love the button steering on the control, on the blade control. The two green buttons at the top is like click, 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 click. You're steering the tiller. It was awesome. But it doesn't, I guess my point is, yes, the machine was fun to run, but it doesn't matter what machine you're in, man. It doesn't fucking matter. And the fact that stuff got built with that equipment during that era.
Thanks, bro. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, that was pretty funny. We stacked and built that thing with that shitty beat up 275, and I winched the landing with a shittier, even more beat up MP, and it came out pretty good. And footage went down on it, and photos were had, and Chili Miller was there doing his thing on it. Like, yeah, it was insane. It was amazing to be part of that, and I'm very thankful for that, because guys these days just jump in a Park Pro or a Bison X, and those machines these days, they are so sick. It is no question asked that snowboard park or terrain park building technology has come a very long way in the last 15 years. But I don't care. Like I'm super pumped that I got to do that, and I can say that I did that, and I'm pretty stoked on that photo as well. Actually, that's a good memory. I remember taking that, and like just a classic example that I had to blade that takeoff whilst I was grooming it as quickly as possible, because the cat was profusely leaking engine oil.
Was it
I
the
had to
BR2 or the MP?
BR2. BR2 was. So I would come in and be like, right, I've got to get this right as quickly as possible so that I leave the least amount of oil stains on this takeoff.
Holy shit.
So I would be frantically in spring snow trying to blade this 2-cat wide takeoff and match it all together, and be like, yeah, okay, I got it, go for that final blade, blending it all through the exit, the belly, back into the toe, and just like, okay, I got it. Yeah, that's sweet. There isn't a fucking puddle of black shit on the takeoff now. Okay, cool. Good. We can shoot on this jump tomorrow because it's not stained. So it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. But 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 amazing experience at the same time. So you can do a lot of stuff with a minimal, with being a minimalist, and it teaches you that now. Like, and it means that things became way faster, obviously, because you had all your techniques of how to do things with what was called a terrain master. But I mean, that thing wasn't really mastering too much shit unless you. It took a long time. You had to put extra steps into to doing stuff. You had to
Yeah.
get extra snow because the
Yeah.
blade couldn't reach a certain point. So you'd need
Yep. Little step
you
ladder.
need to get an extra
Yep.
10 blades of snow to jack yourself up an extra 4 or 5 feet to reach something. Or now you just come along and cruise in and just flip your blade up there and tap it off, and then and put it on Instagram, I guess. I don't know, but
Hashtag the blade dive. I do have a few more special guest questions for you, and I'm going to throw them your way right now. Here is question number 1.
Yo, Reubs, what's up? What's up, Blade Dive? So I have a question for Reuben, and it pertains to China. I would like to know about Chinese cuisine and how lovely it is. Specifically, chicken head soup with Mars on our going away party that night. Yeah, tell us some stories, Reubs. Anyways, mate, hope you're all good and having a good summer down under. Talk to you soon.
Nice, man. Brandon Dodds. Sounds like he was behind the sticks there.
Yeah, I thought you might know who that may be. Yeah, that was definitely Mr. Dodds.
Good shit, man. Good shit. Yeah, that was an interesting time. Chinese cuisine, for the record, straight off the bat, I guess, is pretty terrible. It's certainly not what you get at an American or an Australian food court or a Chinese restaurant. Especially if you're vegan. Brandon was pushing some vegan days, I believe. Definitely vegetarian, and he was not a happy man. Brandon was not a happy man
Ooh.
a lot of the time. It was pretty funny. Do you want to see a lunch tray get thrown? If you want to see a lunch tray get thrown, go and have a meal in China with Brandon Dodds. Oh man, tripping out straight off the plane, straight into it. This is like late 2017. Brandon had been there for like a week or so before me, and oh god, man, we were pushing snow and shaping snow and grooming snow all day, and then I was just like, I got a taste for some beers, and I think it's pretty hard to get Brandon to that point sometimes, but once you do, you're good to go. And we went out for dinner with all the day crew kids, like these Chinese kids. None of us could speak to each other or anything, and they're just putting chicken heads on our plates in front of us, and we're like, whoa.
So was it like
But hilarious. It was, but they're straight up. They're like, oh, you don't want to eat it? I was like, no, man, I don't really want to eat it. And he's like, I'll show you how to eat it. So he picks it up and he like opens the beak, rips the tongue out, eats the tongue, twists the beak and pulls the beak out of its face. And what he did then, he put his thumbs into the back of its head and opened its head and took its brain out. And then took the skull out of the skin and then just ate the skin. And I was just like, wow, just watch the chicken head just get completely devoured. By this like 16-year-old Chinese kid. He's obviously done that 40,000 times. But yeah, it's fucking awesome. Mars had like rough English or broken English, and all the other guys had zero English, and Brandon and I have zero Mandarin. So it was like the blind leading the blind as far as conversation goes, but just it's still involving lots of beer and Chinese rice wine and chicken heads, pretty much. So yeah, it was pretty out there, but amazing, like classic life experience shit that I'll never forget. My second trip, I hooked up with this guy Wade, and Wade was cool. He spoke good English, and he was a young dude, so knew what was going on. And I was like, okay, cool, this is my guy. I need to just sort of cling to this guy. And every time I went out for dinner, I would look at him and be like, you make sure you sit next to me, man. And he's like, yeah, sweet. So every time a dish would come out, I would just look at him and be like, do I want to eat that or not? And it got to the point sometimes where there was dishes coming out, and before they even hit the table and the hand comes away, he would look at me and be like, you don't want to eat that, trust me, you don't want to eat that thing, dude. I was just like, yeah, okay, I believe you. I totally believe you. I don't want to eat it. But it's fucking hilarious. Like, we have the funniest, loosest nights in China, and you get tons of work done, and there's heaps of snow, and it's a wild experience for sure, to say the least.
Yeah, it absolutely sounds like. I'd like to know where that opportunity came from. Was that more or less, I can't go to North America or anywhere else at the moment, and I've got this I'm just going to grab this opportunity? It was presented to me. How did that?
No, that was definitely a Charles influence. Charles, I was banging away on a frame one day, putting down flooring in about, I think, the middle of November 2017. Just came off a good season at Threadbow. It was starting summer work, and Charles just called me and he's like, hey, what's up, man? And we have a really good relationship. We don't talk that much, but we go back a very, very long way before either of us even got in snowcats. So 15, 16 years or whatever. But he called me out of the blue. He said, hey, there's all this work going on in China. Are you interested? I can definitely get you in. You're in. You just need to contact this dude, send him some details, throw a resume so that he can have a look at it. And are you down? And I was like, yeah, sounds pretty good. What are you thinking? When? And he's like, in like 2 weeks. You got to like get your shit together and get on the plane in like 10 days or 12 days. And I was like, whoa, okay. Wow. And then before I know it, I'd renewed my passport and got a visa. Everything was good. And then I was going to China, and I was just like, I was kind of tripping out. And I had no idea what to expect. Like, you can't have any idea what to expect when you're going to build a terrain park in China.
Yeah.
Until you've done it, It's probably come a long way in that 3.5 years or whatever, 3 and a bit years, as far as comforting, because a lot more Western guys are going there now. It's become more of a thing, but yeah, it was a little bit rare then, and it was pretty. Oh man, it's eye-opening. It was gnarly. I don't think I've ever had so much anxiety in my life.
Really?
For the 2 weeks that I was in China for the first trip, I was just out of my emotional depth for sure. So I roll in, and then Brandon's there, and I'm like, sick, Brandon's here, that's totally cool. I've got someone to cling to, we can cling to each other and hang out and whatever. And we were doing that, and we got towards the end of the build. I came in a bit later because it took me a bit longer to get my visa and that sort of thing. So Brandon was over there. He started the build. I came in, we finished it together. And then he'd been plugged to another project. And so we go to breakfast, and he says to me like, oh, I think I'm out of here tomorrow. And I was just sort of looked at him, and I was like, what? What are you talking about, dude? He's like, oh, apparently I'm going somewhere tomorrow. I don't really know. And I was just like, oh, that kind of sucks. We just finished. And he's like, yeah, so, and then I look at the interpreter that we had living with us. And I was like, oh, that's cool. His name was Mars. And I was like, that's cool, Mars. I guess me and you, huh? Me and you're in for the long haul. And he's like, nah, I'm out of here too.
Oh, no shit.
And I was just like, I couldn't pick my jaw up off the floor. I was like, hang on, you guys are fucking leaving me here?
What?
And I was in this place, in this resort, where no one could speak a lick of English.
Oh,
I can't speak Mandarin if there's a gun to my head.
Yeah.
The food is pretty
there an
questionable.
app for that?
I'm smashing bottles. I'm drinking tap water like it's going out of fashion because I didn't even know that you couldn't drink tap water. And it was just this. It was so gnarly. And then we got to the point where the park was open, and I had to just groom it every night, and that was kind of my gig for a little bit, was just make tweaks, rebuild stuff along the way, and then they were having a comp at the end of this period of time, and they wanted me there to make sure everything was sweet for the comp, and I was like, yeah, that's not what I'm worried about. I was like, I'm worried about whether or not I'm going to make it through this mentally.
Yeah.
And so they had night skiing every night, so I had to go to work at 9:00 at night. And the park took a solid 6 hours to do a real nice job of.
Sure.
So I'm walking to work in like minus 22 degrees Celsius at 9:00 at night. And then I'm grooming the park, and then I'm walking home through this construction zone for like half a mile or whatever, three-quarters of a mile in like very sub-zero temperatures, and I'm freezing my ass off, and I'm scared shitless.
Dude.
And that was just how it was for 2 straight weeks. I was not holding it together. And I was like, what am I going to do if my snowcat breaks down in the middle of the night? Like, who the fuck am I going to call?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know A, who to call, or B, how to speak to him or her if I can get somebody somewhere. Wow. And lo and behold, my snowcat for 2 weeks didn't break down. And I couldn't believe it. And it was just so stressful. And it's like, you have to be able to control your shit in places like that, because it is nothing like how we function.
Wow. What?
You don't roll in and punch in and fill out a cat, like do a pre-check on your cat and fill out a logbook, make sure everything's good, go and do your thing. You're talking to people on the radio all night, and then you come back, fuel up, check your cat again, fill out your logbook. Sweet as, I'm going home. It's all gravy when you're doing it in North America or Australia or New Zealand, whatever. You take that stuff, this is what it is. And then you drop yourself into the middle of China where you can't speak to anybody for 2 weeks, and it just rattles the shit out of you, man. And oh my God, it was so stressful.
Okay, so maybe to decompress a little bit and maybe put a smile on your face, I have another guest question for you, special guest question for you. I think you'll like it. Along the same lines, it's not like you have to shift your brain from one side to the other too hard. It's food oriented too. So here it is.
What up, Blade Dive? What up, Parker? I got a question for your guests there. I was hoping Reuben could tell us the story about the most expensive hamburger he's ever purchased in his entire life, and maybe touch on that whole season.
Oh my God. That is friggin' priceless. That was just over 2 years ago, actually, that hamburger. But you know what? It wasn't the hamburger that killed me. It was the haircut. The haircut.
Oh, no way.
Oh, dude. Jesus Christ. Like, I've never had my hair brushed and shampooed and shit like that. And I've also never paid like $115 to get my fucking hair cut. Oh my God.
Wait, what?
Yeah, dude. For real. I'm sorry.
Wait, what? You gotta elaborate. You gotta unpack that a little bit. You can't leave it at $115 for a haircut and a hamburger.
So that's no, that was the haircut, not including the hamburger.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was in Norway with Jake Keiko, a young fella from Thredbo, Park City, who I'm very quite partial to with working his own personal life. He's a good dude. And yeah, we went down to Stavanger. We were living and working in southwestern Norway, in this funky little backwoods place, dude. Wow. But we're about probably 90 minutes or 2 hours drive from the city of Stavanger, and we went to Stavanger for a little bit of a weekend trip. And yeah, just got some food. We're just kicking around town, having a look around. Really cool, beautiful little city. Exactly what you would sort of picture the Norwegian docks to be like cobblestones and old logs, and really cool. architecture and that sort of thing. It puts you in that moment where you're like, yeah, this is what I pictured this to be like, and this is so cool that I'm here. So they're the things you take away from that. It's definitely not the wasn't that season's work experience or snow conditions or anything by any means. It's the personal times. And yeah, we went out for lunch and we just literally got a fucking pint of beer and a burger, and that was like 70 Australia. And so when I say $115 haircut, that's Aussie dollars. So, talking like $60, $70 American or something.
Wow.
Which is still a lot, obviously, for a haircut. But
yeah.
But yeah, I was just computing everything back to Aussie dollars, and I was just like, oh my God, it's fucking hilarious. Let's just go out for lunch. Let's get beers. Let's do whatever, because it's funny how much it costs.
Yeah.
But we were making some good money, and yeah, it was fun times. It was hilarious. It was a terrible season.
Yeah. I mean, either way, though, really cool stories. Thanks to Jake and Brandon for contributing. Big shout outs. I want to know too, like maybe along the lines of relationships and people. I mean, we've talked about a bunch of names, but I want to know who maybe you specifically looked up to along your journey within your career. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that I've looked up to over the years, and then a lot of guys that have come up under me, and I enjoy both of those factors actually. Probably the latter more, but guys like Brandon Dodds is a good friend who's a sick builder. Doug Mercer is someone that I've got ultimate respect for. Matty Rowan, Sam Poffley, Chris Myers is an incredible builder and good dude. There's heaps of guys that I've worked with along the way that as I said, you become buddies really essentially, and you take, if you're working 12, 14, 16-hour shifts trying to do something, you realize at the end of it, when you're having a beer or something, that you're both humans, because you want to escape the snowcat talk and sit there and be a person for a while. So that's really, really special moments, I think, that I take away with me for sure. Guys that I've worked with in China and Australia and everything, and the list is long, and there's a lot of respect for a lot of people there. It's really cool. I think the shift that I took at some point in my career was, like, I was lucky enough to be offered the chance to do a lot of big projects that were, pretty high profile stuff with Star Wars and the One Hit Wonder and that sort of thing. And as much as I did enjoy building it and being successful with it, my mentality kind of shifted towards building people, building operators, and focusing a lot of energy on the guys underneath me. And while I have like three really good examples, is one of them is you. I didn't get as much time with you as I did want, as far as working on your skills and stuff like that. But I saw you go off and do your own thing, and you had a really good career really quickly, and you did really well. But then two guys that I was lucky enough to kind of handcraft myself in Australia during the Aussie seasons was Jake Keiko, who's, become one of my best friends. But I saw that
great guy,
man,
such a nice guy,
all-time guy, and I saw him go from, he's the classic case of a dude that embellished on his resume to get a job, and when he came overseas, and I put a couple of things to him, I saw him kind of be, like a deer in headlights, and gave it that little gulp, like, yep, I'll be good. And I was like, yep, go do this, this, and this. Like, I need you to do this, this, and this tonight. Be back here in like 4 hours. And just the look on the kid's face, is like, and I'm kind of looking at him like, what the fuck's the problem with that, man? Like, let's get it done. Let's go. And then, and then to see him go from someone that was terrified of going to set a bunch of boxes somewhere to becoming an extremely high-end builder and like becoming unbelievably efficient. Like, I saw that guy over the course of back-to-back seasons over 5 or 6 years just escalate to an amazing builder. And always an awesome dude. And then James Singleton as well is another one of my best buddies, and watching him go from being one of my day crew kids to putting in his time with doing some trail grooming and that sort of thing, and then coming up.
What does Reuben Cameron see the future of snowboarding or the snow industry or skiing operations, snowcat, the overall perspective? I mean, you've given your advice to the up and coming folks who may be already in it or want to pursue it, but what do you see the future of the industry looking like, and how operators can achieve whatever they want to, their version of
Well,
success?
that's a pretty tough one. I mean, you never really know what direction big companies are going to go in and what they're going to prioritize, and how things, obviously, what the entire world has experienced in the last 12 months, how that's going to impact everything. And I'm quite surprised that America is going ahead the way it is with winter operations. You know, you don't really, I haven't heard much about resorts being closed or anything like that, or like you guys are open and sending it, aren't you? Pretty much. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is there's so many variables in the world that, and you never really know what business is going to do and who's going to pull any big moves or do anything weird. And the industry has changed a lot of times, really, since I've been in it, especially like it's all based around riding, right? And riding evolves so quickly, and it's changed a bunch of times in the 20 years that I've been hanging around. So, to be honest, man, I don't really know where I see it going. I haven't thought too much about it, I guess, to a really in-depth place, but I hope that it's good. It's I feel like that golden era was more about the rider and the parks and the features and everything like that, whereas it's very commercialized. It's a lot more so commercialized for sure than what it was 12, 15 years ago. But that also is natural, right? Because that's what we were talking about earlier, is the fact that people started putting money into parks and pumping it up, and it was becoming really good. So then it's just a continuation of that, and anything that gets good and popular gets sold out, really. So I'm not sure where I see it going, to be completely honest with you. I hope that a lot of people just keep enjoying it for what it is, because that's pretty much what I tried to do, was just not take it take it seriously, of course. Like, I loved what I was doing and I was trying very hard at it. So, I mean, just try and don't take it too seriously from a life point of view, because it might not last long. Enjoy it while you're doing it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think maybe just from the life point of view, I want to know too, what's one thing that defines Reuben Cameron that has nothing to do with equipment operations in the snow industry?
Deep question, bro. You're nearly killing up mud here, man. Um, it's definitely so. Yeah, my life has definitely shifted massively, and it's because of the two special little humans that I brought into the world. And so it doesn't take away from, due to the fact that I've shifted away from that obsession of always being at a ski resort, being in a snowcat, being on a snowboard, trying to kick goals on both of those, like in a cat and on a board. That's definitely how I would have defined myself. Even, I guess 10 years ago I was hard out in the thick of it. But my life has completely shifted, for sure. Priorities have shifted, and it's my kids that are my goal all the time now, making sure they've got what they need. And I'm having a good time with them and just spending time with them. But I think that's nothing but a good thing. And that doesn't take away from what I achieved in the industry as a young man. Whether or not I have left a mark on the industry, or I don't really care if I have or not, like, because I feel that I have, and I know that there's a bunch of other people that feel that I have. So I was obviously doing something right for a certain amount of time, but now I get to know that I'm doing right with those guys and just have the best time of my adult life with my children, really. So it's just being a dad. Being a dad's what defines me now.
So cool, Reubs. That's awesome to hear. I definitely want to dive into one last question, and it's about your threadbow days, because there was a lot that you accomplished there. There were some things you built there. There were some people that made impacts on you, and it was a really cool opportunity. I feel like it was, and kind of the cherry on top for your career. But I want to know what your takeaways were as the manager, attempting to be a leader, growing a department, all of it. But whatever you're willing to share, I definitely want to know what your takeaways were from that experience.
I think watching when I came in there, we had a bit of a shift in management or ownership slash management at Falls Creek after I'd given that place a lot. I'd given it a lot, and I was very upset when I left there because a lot of the stuff that I'd been pushing for and trying to achieve and had been achieving was almost kind of dropped like a hot potato, really. So that was very disappointing, and I left there quite upset, and I was sort of convinced that I was done almost. I was like, okay, I'm going to walk away from this for at least a little while, if not forever. Who knows? See what happens in the future. And then my phone actually rang, and it takes me back to a little bit of a, sorry to waffle on, I hope I'm not going off tangent, but it takes me back to the leadership of David Plant that I was talking about earlier on. As the mountain manager at Falls Creek, I had a conversation one-on-one with him just out in the open. We saw each other in passing on snowmobiles one afternoon. And he just said to me, look, here's what's going on here. In a nutshell, I don't want to name names of companies or anything like that. It was just the ownership of Falls Creek at the time. And he said, here's what's going on here. And I know who you are, and I know what you're doing, and I know what you're trying to do. And yes, you do an amazing job, and your resume is incredible, but you're not going to like what goes on here. So I'm just giving you a heads up. You might want to think about whatever you want to think about. And he said to me, but don't worry, whatever you choose to do, if it's play the game or leave or whatever, your resume is what it is and your reputation is what it is. And you could walk away from this for 5 years. And I guarantee you, Reuben, your phone will ring one day with somebody needing some help in a terrain park somewhere. And I sort of didn't really know what he was getting at. And then we experienced that season, which was also a bad snow year, bad conditions year, but a terrible impact year for what we were trying to do after coming off 2012, which was about the highest peak we could have climbed to because it was a golden year of snow and conditions, and Style Wars was incredible. And so we went into this next one, and then, we fell off a cliff onto our faces. And that has always stuck with me, that conversation. It was like it was cryptic almost, and I was trying to figure it out. But the only way I could figure it out was by experiencing life.
Yeah.
And so
wow.
It was really cool. And then lo and behold, it didn't even take 5 years. So I left Falls Creek really upset. And it didn't even take 5 years. It took about 7 months, and my phone rang. And I was at work one day and I couldn't answer it. It was a hot day. I was working and I got a voicemail. I was like, sweet, I'll check that out when I have a break, whatever. And it was the voice of this crazy Swiss man who happened to be the mountain manager at Threadbow. And he's hello, Reuben. I'd appreciate it if you can call me back. I'm the mountain manager at Threadbow Resort. I was like, oh, okay. Wow, I did not expect that. What's going on here? So I called him back, and basically he basically threw a job at me and said, look, we've had a big shift in what goes on here, and we've heard that you've left Falls Creek, and we want you here. We want you to come and help us. So how about it? And I had a bit of a back and forth with him over a couple of emails and a few phone calls, and I said, look, thank you very much for the ego stroke, but I'm going to take some time out and do some other stuff. But I appreciate it. And so he said, oh, okay, well, all right. I sort of thought that would work out differently, but no worries. All the best to you, and maybe we'll talk in the future. And I said, yeah, cool. So I sent Werner Siegenthaler a copy of my resume anyway. I was just, here, have this on file. We will talk again. And he called me, that was sort of February, March, and then he called me back in May, and he said, look, man, come on, we want you. We really want you here. And here's what I'm willing to offer you, and come up and check it out. And, you know, I ran it past my partner at the time, and she was always incredibly supportive of the things that I wanted to do. So I gave it a shot. I said, okay, cool, thanks. I'm in, I'm coming up. And this was 2014. And we didn't, you know, you want to, the dream is to walk in somewhere and make the impact and do the sick job and be like, have everyone be like, whoa, wow, sick, that guy's cool, it's unreal, he did a great job. But it didn't, in all honesty, it didn't work out like that. It didn't go that well, really. It was a decent snow season, but I didn't know the resort at all from anything. I didn't know the resort at all. I didn't know the people. I didn't know the program. And the first day that I got there, I was driving around in a snowcat, and I was in a rail yard or something, and I could feel stuff under my tracks. And I was like, what's going on here? Something's not right. So I do a gentle backblade, and I get a few little clinks and a little bit of a colour red, and what's going on here? And I realised I was driving around on top of probably 6 or 7 of the 10 or 12 features that they had at the time.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
It just, I was like driving around like in a rail yard where you're corkscrewing and picking shit up and putting it down, and I was on top of rails that had about maybe a foot of snow on them. And then it clicked with me what I had gotten into. I was like, wow, I'm in for it here. I'm in for a long haul here. This program is not in a good spot. And it really hit home with me right then what I was in for. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm here to have a go. I'm here to do it. So I was up for it. We didn't really swim that well that season as far as public parks and stuff like that goes. But I got the attention of everybody when I pretty well sort of smashed the one-hit wonder out of the park. Like, sorry for the pun, but it's, yeah, I did a good job. And I think a lot of people were worried about that. We weren't having the best park season. It was a good snowmaking start, so Perisher was making a lot of snow, and they were building jumps because they had a team that had been there for a couple of years, and it was getting pretty stressful. But then a lot of people were getting stressed about whether or not I could handle a build of the one-hit one's magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it, but I knew that I could. I was like, I've got that in the bag. I'm confident with that because it's something that I can just put my whole hand on and do it how I need to. And I was like, and I will do whatever I need to make sure that's amazing. And so I got everyone's attention by doing a good job of the 2014 one-hit wonder. And then from there, I got people's trust, and it just brings me back to that whole thing. It's getting people's trust and getting them on your page. And so the first season was pretty low, really. We just barely got through, if we got through. But it had to happen. And I've talked to Jake about this a lot. And he was like, we had to have that season. We had to get it out of the way. We were a brand new team. All of us meeting each other for the first time, I was the only one that had any big responsibility as far as building big shit goes, and having to meet deadlines and be a leader and stuff like that. So it was hard. It was a hard one, and the hours on end were gnarly. But my biggest takeaway from the entire process of that was the growth that I saw, and I really built a team while I was there, and it was really cool to see and really cool to do. And then by the time we'd finished, our product was superior for sure. We were turning a lot of heads with our jump lines and the creativity in our park and the events that we were doing, and and it was thick and full. Like, the events calendar was stacked, and we were doing a good job of everything, and it was really cool. It was a good way to sort of wrap that up, I think.
Yeah, I think the hardest part with any kind of new adventure is realizing what you're in for. And maybe the other
and
hard,
and you don't
maybe
even know it. Even if you
yeah,
think you know what you're in for, you probably don't know, and you're going to get a slap in the face and have to wake up and be like, whoa, shit, okay.
I didn't even think it. So hearing you say that, like, I'm floored. Like, I had no idea. Like, because I'm looking at you on a pedestal, right, all the time, and going, here's this dude that's, epic guy, epic park builder. He's got no issue right now doing this. This is amazing. Like, he's going to go in there and he's going to do great things. And it sounds like you did, but the fact that you're saying that you needed to still do exactly what everybody else has done when you're walking into an opportunity like that, to me, makes me respect you even more. That's huge.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, but that it just brings me back to the honesty thing and the whole, like, don't ever listen to anyone that thinks they've always killed it, because, like,
Yeah.
when you've been in the game as long as a lot of us guys have, you've moved around to a few different spots for sure. Like, that's just, it's natural. It's what happens. Like, places go through cycles, and you're part of their cycles. Whether they're taking parks really seriously, putting a lot of money into it, offering you the right money at the right time, or whatever it is that gets you to a certain place for a certain number of years, it's all part of a cycle. And ski resorts are amazing creatures for moving in cycles. And so you have to go to a new place, and you can't just hit the ground running because it's a new place. It's not natural to think that you can do that. Like, everything's a learning curve for everybody. They have to learn who you are. You have to learn who they are. You have to learn the terrain, the snowcats that you're using, the people that you're leaning on. Like, and you hope that you work it right so that it all comes together in a nice little harmony. After, I've always kind of said 4 seasons is a number that you can go to a place as an experienced guy who knows his shit and take something that needs work. It's 3 to 4 seasons. Your first one is a write-off. You've just got
100%.
to go. You've just got to go there and punch in and say, okay, this is who I am. That's your first season gone, done. It's over. They shake your hand. You might have done well, you might have not. But if they want you to come back, then clearly you've done well enough that you're like, right. And that was like the biggest curve in our spike was the second and third season. 2015, I came straight back in and was rubbing my hands. I was like, right, I know what's going on here now, and I know what I'm going to do. And then you start doing it, and then you really get the attention of people, and then you build that massive photo shoot. You smash it again for the second year in a row, but the public parks are coming up, and you really start to get people behind you. And then you're like, right, now I'm off and running. It's just, how long am I going to get to run here?
Yeah.
So, and then we ended up taking that to a sick place where we basically finished it with a Holy Bolly Down Under with Snowboard Productions. And that was like pretty much the sickest thing the Southern Hemisphere has ever seen. It's definitely top 2 or 3. There's been a bunch of good stuff done across New Zealand and Australia, but I mean, the Holy Bolly course that we built with the rest of the Anton's Park after it, it was like, what's going on here? Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that event in itself is definitely pushing things, in my opinion, in the correct direction. And I 100% put it up against something like a super park that allows a massive group of people to come together to just shred, like progress, hang out, build community, ultimately stoke everybody out and move snowboarding in a really cool direction for sure.
Absolutely, and but just for so many people too, like, and hats off to the owner of Snowboy, Crush, who has become a really good buddy of mine, and we're really hoping to work together again in the future. And just having Steve Petrie there and the two crews, I've never seen two groups of people that didn't know each other at all come together so well. It was insane. It was so cool. Snowboard Productions and Threadbow Parks came together like best friends in 10 days and just did the sickest shit ever. And then it was incredible. It was really, really beautiful, really.
Yeah, and man, thanks for sharing all that. I know that was a chunk of your career, and it sounds like you definitely took away some pretty cool things that not only did you apply to the snow industry, but yourself. So I just want to say thanks for sharing again. And man, I've had an incredible time talking to you, listening to you, and just catching up. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to come on the show and just kind of pour your heart out there a little bit. So thanks so much, Reuben.
Awesome, dude. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very good to speak to you.
Wow, huge thank you to Reuben Cameron. I'm going to leave you with one of his quotes from the episode, and that is, "Good experience is obtained through good foundation." Oh, love that. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, follow and like us on social media at The Blade Dive on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to send in your push road questions. And if you're out there taking pictures of you or your machine, use the hashtag The Blade Dive. Show us what's going on. And remember, don't be a dick. Fill your machine up with diesel at the end of your shift. Oh, and if you're riding the windshield with your feet, be sure to clean your footprints off, man. Come on.